JCK.
Hey, Julia.
Today we are talking about AI and more specifically a use case that we've both been playing around with and using when it comes to artificial intelligence. And we're going to talk through some steps and things that we use to help us with content creation and ways that you can create a trusted voice, your trusted voice, and steps that you can take to create your own voice clone using your AI of choice.
Yeah. So, what we're talking about in particular, and I just did a post, this is going to be later, but like I did a post on April 7th about this topic. And we're going to talk about building a brand voice artifact and starting with why the heck is this important? Generative AI, as just in general, is typically trying to figure out what your unique good is. And then it's trying to reverse engineer its response to match that good. So, tone of voice, what you like, what you don't like, right? That's something that we don't always know out of the gates, but it's something that AI is trying to glean from you. Well, with some of the usage guardrails, is that how we should say it? Like with
It works.
Claude and some of the other AIs maxing out on usage recently, it's resulted in people having to be a little bit more savvy with how they're leveraging their AI. And so one of the things that I've found personally is that creating an artifact or an artifact as a file, right, that AI is going to use for context and grounding. Instead of having a conversation with an AI like a ChatGPT or a Claude and going back and forth in terms of here's who I am, here's what I do, here's the context of my company, now go build this thing. If I start the conversation with here is my brand voice like artifact, I want you to remember this with everything you build. I can do that in the first prompt, and ChatGPT or Claude or Perplexity or whatever it is able to get up and running really, really fast to my tone of voice and my needs.
And so you
yeah.
built, your approach was build this artifact. And what I played around with prior to us going through a session, right, on building artifacts in Claude, I've been more in Gemini and ChatGPT and newish to Claude, but I created a custom gem. So that's a Gemini piece. It's like a little project where I created a similar Julia's voice artifact and put it into this custom project. So instead of me having to upload the document regularly, I can just go to that project, to that gem, and open it up and then put in my prompt and it'll run and do what I want it to do. So it's a similar approach, little different application of it. But that's how I did it. And maybe we can talk about some of the things that I put into it to be able to get my voice. And then you could talk through things around the brand,
Yeah,
possibly.
totally. I think that's great.
Voice wise, when I did this first iteration of it, I went to podcasts that I've been on. So I took those podcast recordings and transcribed them if there wasn't already a transcription. I took my writing, so my book, LinkedIn posts, and other content that I've put out. I put in some frameworks that I've developed over the years and put all of that videos of me, you name it, it all got loaded into this framework so that Gemini could create my voice identity. And that is part of the project that I created. So going and getting some of those artifacts of your writing, samples, things that you consider good, right?
You can also give bad examples though, because you can say this is a bad example and here's why. Because you're training the AI about what good and what bad looks like. And a lot of the times people forget the bad part, but that's actually how it understands where both sides of the guardrails are, right? That's super cool. That's super cool. I think it's a super important lesson because it can be daunting to know where to start with something like your brand voice or like what's good for me, right? And if you haven't historically been very intentional about that, it's like, well, where do I start? And so like for Julia, right? Like there are patterns that are out there in stuff that already exists that she defines as good, right? And so if we're able to, again, one thing that I often say is like, you have to collect the dots so you can connect the dots. Same goes here. We have to collect those dots. We don't want to assume that we know our actual brand voice, because a lot of the times what we think in our head is our brand voice and how we speak, there can be a difference there. So another thing to remember too is I love the idea about being able to use this as a project. I personally have found using it as an artifact has been good. And one of the things that I include in that artifact is actually a prompt to Claude that if we hit on something that I really like, or if I define something that I don't like, for it to update its artifact so that I have a continuously evolving version of what my voice looks like, right? Because voice is not static. Sometimes we shift about how we talk about things. Or sometimes you hit those aha moments. And again, we're trying to define where those guardrails are so that we can leverage AI to truly understand what our unique good looks like, and then deliver there. So there's a lot less rework that's needed once the set gets like really, really honed in, which is
And
exciting.
I think something else that's really important is understanding who you're speaking to. Who do you want to speak to? Who's your customer? Who's your ideal customer or candidate profile? Who do you want to talk to? Because that's going to help the AI frame the content or approach it might help you develop. So it might not just be write me a LinkedIn article, but here's the article that I want to write. Here's the audience. Where are the best places to put this? And
Yes.
the AI can help you make some of those decisions.
Yes. And reminder that like best practice, we don't have a one size fits all voice, right? So I was building out an agent for one of my clients that did layoffs intelligence. So it was able to understand where in the tech industry layoffs were happening, and then able to give direction to the sourcers on where to direct their outreach. And then the agent would actually go and build outreach for like content specific for those people. So for example, Oracle just went through a massive layoff. The agent was able to understand based on its pull how that went about, right? But content that I build for layoffs, right? So this is somebody who's just lost their job. That tone of voice is going to be very different than reaching out, like having a sourcer reach out to somebody who's currently in seat somewhere, right? Like you have to have nuance in your tone. And so it's important that we're able to start to understand this and make sure, again, that we're not creating one size fits all experiences, but that we're able to clarify that nuance and then make sure that our AI is able to act on that nuance. And so understanding your audience and the specific situation that you're building content into as well is a really important piece.
And something that you can do when you're building this type of AI project is you can prompt it to that if I don't tell you these 6 things in my prompt, don't create anything, ask me the follow-up questions that are missing so that you can make sure that you've got a well thought out piece of content or content strategy, as opposed to giving it partial information. You can force it to ask you some of those follow-up questions in order to be as complete as you can.
Yes. And another piece is that, like, if it's important for you to develop your own content, you can also tell that to Claude in your brand artifact. And you can say, push back on me if I'm asking you to write this for me, right? Like, if that's really, really important to who you are, the AI will start to challenge you on that, right? And so this is a way, again, AI is trying to understand what your good is. The best way for it to do that is for you to, I guess, glean these insights of what that good is and then be very clear with it. And it will hold you to those things too.
So we've talked about gathering your voice artifacts, right? Gathering transcripts and content that you've put out that shares your voice and your tone. We've talked about understanding your customer or audience. We've talked about understanding your product or process flow. Any other tips or suggestions when it comes to what you need to have to be prepared? I know we've got, as JCK said, if you go back to her LinkedIn and look at April 7th, she had a post that gives some, and we could put that in here as well. Some
Yeah,
of
we
those
totally can. We can
step-by-step
put the exact
instructions.
prompt. Yeah,
Yep.
because we have an exact prompt that will guide you through with Claude or GPT, really whatever one you want to use, or any other AI, really, with building out what this looks like. So we'll make sure to include that as well. But I think the other thing that we hit on is understanding what your unique good is and making sure that you have some way of continuously updating that, because we don't normally know that out of the gates. We're finding that we should make sure that we're mining for that with our interactions that we have with AI as well. And sometimes it's hard for us to remember that, but if we cue the AI to actually mine for those insights and then update the corresponding documents, it's going to be a heck of a lot easier to accomplish that. So I think that was one of the pieces, as well as having something like a brand voice artifact is going to help you with AI usage. So if you are maxing out on Claude or on GPT or wherever it is, right? Building a practice, even though memory, yes, you can turn on memory in Claude 100%, but it's still a best practice to act as if memory doesn't work. And so to re-queue up these things at the beginning of your experience within that new chat. So, which leads me to the next piece, which is our handoff documents, which I think we should do for our next.
Yeah. One of the things I think that's really important for people is, I will tell you, my first Gemini voice annoyed the hell out of me. It was my first time playing around with it. I started developing content. I'd put in my draft and say, help make this better. And I'd give it more specific. I'm simplifying it, right? But I would give it some prompts to help with either researching a couple of items that I felt like I was a little fuzzy on and needed to beef up a little, or just revise it. And I had put things in around Julia-isms, things that I say frequently, and it just went overboard with some of it, where it was just so repetitive on some of the content and it just felt icky to me. And then I built it in ChatGPT and hated that experience. And then have built it in Claude and have enjoyed the Claude piece a lot better. If I build something in one, I might share it with the other one and say, what do you think of this? Evaluate it, give me pros and cons, give me ideas on improving, why or why won't this work? And so I play them off of each other a little bit as well, which is interesting to see how they evaluate the other's output.
They're not the same, y'all. They are
They're
not the
not.
same.
And so if you have the ability, I pay for all three, like the $20 a month. So because of that, I feel comfortable. They each know me, but differently. It's like
Mm-hmm.
dating three people at once sometimes. And but I'm really enjoying
That's a really
Claude.
funny way to look at it. I love that. Dating three people at once.
Three different
Yeah, and
personalities, right?
it really is, and it's like having three interns that work for you that each kind of know you in their unique way. But I like the dating three people at once thing. That's hilarious.
I think recruiting is like dating. It really is. I've coached friends who were looking to date around sourcing best practices.
Oh my
On
gosh, that should be another episode we do. I remember when I was in the dating world after my divorce, like I knew employer branding and like knew how to build a brand, right? I built a brand too well. And so I was like flooded with these like outreaches, and then I had to like swing the pendulum the other way. And it's just ridiculous. But it is a lot like dating. I
yeah.
actually, yeah, it's funny.
So
That's
I know
another
we
conversation
digressed a
for another
little,
day.
but we're going to
But
keep
that's what
this
we
in and
do.
not edit it out.
And
Yes.
and we appreciate if you gotten to this point. Make sure to like and subscribe wherever you're watching this. Um, and
And stay
like
tuned.
stay tuned and also share your tips and tricks. Like or like if there's something you really, really wish that you could build or you have like that aha moment, send us a message. And we'd love to use it as a use case and we'll build it out for you and hand it over
Where
to you.
can someone find you?
Oh, I'm on LinkedIn. Sorry, it's probably a good thing to say. J Cody, COTIE on LinkedIn. How about you, Julia?
Julia Levy on LinkedIn.
Love
So
it. Love
have a great
it.
day, everyone.
Amazing. Until next time, this is a Missing Manual. Thanks for joining.